Welcome into another edition of the Gig'Em247 podcast. I am Andrew Hattersly, joined again by Brian Perroni. Brian, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well, man. Got a big weekend under our belts here, so now just sort of turn into high school spring ball.
Yeah, so A&M had their spring game this weekend. Had a big visitor group in town, which we will definitely get on, and then a commitment as well, just like we all thought coming out of the weekend. So we'll have that, but got to start with the spring game. Brian, you warned everybody before the podcast got going, or before the spring game got going, and it kind of played out that way. A&M had a lot of guys out. Was kind of an uneven performance, especially on the offensive side of the ball. For me, it was just the consistency that was really lacking, but that was to be expected. The list of injuries is kind of lengthy on both sides of the ball. Guys like Chapman's out, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, Deuce Harmon, Donald Harris, McKinley Jackson. Didn't have Jake Johnson, Antonio Johnson, LJ Johnson, Shamar Turner, and then you also don't have Bryce Foster or Devon Achane. So I didn't take too much away, just for those reasons. But what did you kind of make of everything?
No, I mean I told everybody on the last podcast, and I said it on the boards all week. I was like, this is not going to look anything like the product that hits the field in the fall, and well, A&M fans better hope that's the case
Yeah.
because, yeah, like you said, the offense. I mean, I don't want to mince words; just was not good. Drop passes, bad passes. The quarterbacks had their struggles for sure. But here's the deal: Max Johnson has proven himself in the SEC. He started for LSU for a season. He beat A&M, and then Haynes King obviously is not proven, but he's won a quarterback battle already once in his career. So you know that he can do it. And then Connor Wigman, I mean, this was his first time in front of any fans. So, it's tough for him to just be thrown in there. So I'm honestly not worried about the quarterbacks. Some other
Mhm.
positions may be more concerned about quarterbacks. It's whatever. Those guys. I mean, sheer odds say one will step up and be good, and that's really all you need. But for A&M, I mean, they got to hope all three guys are, SEC quality. At least by conference schedule. It may take a while with Wigman, but yeah, not too concerned about that, especially with all the injuries. I mean, who was the star of the spring game? Avery Hughes. I don't
Avery
think
Hughes.
most A&M fans even knew he existed. A walk-on guy. He had two interceptions. I would have given him three. I would have said that the fumble was an interception that he
Yeah.
stole from Jalen Preston. But yeah, and then he had a pick six. I mean, when a guy like that is the star of the game, it's once again nothing against him, but it's not indicative of what you're going to see in the fall.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the interceptions, you obviously want to take care of the ball better. Multiple interceptions on both sides was kind of the one thing for me, and I guess just the one thing that really needs to get cleaned up, because it was kind of a recurring problem going back to last year, was the receiver drops, and that's really, I think, the one thing heading into fall camp has to be the point of emphasis. I mean, there were bright spots for sure. Evan Stewart, this was his first spring game, and really playing in front of fans, and
Yeah,
he had
he's
his
uh,
moment.
he's really good. I mean,
Yeah,
he
really
was a
good.
five
And
star for a reason. It looks like.
it's a great sign for for A&M fans, for Jimbo Fisher and the rest of the offense, that he's been able to step right in and really produce. I think led the team in catches yesterday, or on Saturday. So a big day for him. I thought Amari Daniels showed a little bit as well. And then on the other side of the ball, Tanmishe Adelaide um, had a strong showing as well, really getting pressure, and those were a few guys that kind of stood out.
Talking about that side of the ball, yeah, Tumishe had a great game, and he's a guy that I think we've seen all spring that people are excited about, and I know Tarpley has written some things about him being sort of a breakout star for A&M. But how about freshman Anthony Lucas? Now
Yeah.
he has had his ups and downs in the spring. You and I saw him in that first week, and you know he looked lost. He looked like a true freshman that had enrolled early, but had a great game. Really showed some quickness off the edge. And I think we've tried to tell people all spring that despite the fact he's listed at 275, he's not really that big a guy. He's tall, but he's still pretty skinny, and he showed that quickness. I think people were a little surprised. They were thinking they were going to see a defensive tackle, but there's a reason that A&M was talking to recruits about Anthony Lucas potentially standing up at times. I mean, he's just really athletic, and in a class with 4 or 5 star defensive line signees, he's got a chance to be up there with them.
Yeah, he's a guy that was obviously right on the cusp of being a 5-star himself, and
I think
like
24/7 Sports had him as a 5 star, but
I
yeah, he
think they
wasn't
did.
a
Yeah,
a composite 5 star. But I know, we know A&M loved him, Notre Dame, Alabama, all these other teams were after him for a reason.
yeah, and just the versatility and that he showed. I mean, he's still a guy that can add to his frame, and when you talk about the depth that A&M has at the defensive line, he's a guy that can move around a little bit, and that's going to be really important when you're trying to get all these guys on the field. And it kind of speaks to that exciting future that A&M has along the defensive line. They don't even have guys like Walter Nolan and Shamar Stewart in the fold yet, and even LT Overton, who's obviously reclassified into the 2022 class. There's so much depth along that defensive line, and a guy like Anthony Lucas is going to benefit from the spring, and even a guy like Ish Harris, another one that maybe took a little bit to get going and has found his footing late in the spring. There's a lot of
Yeah,
excitement
he
about
was one of the
him.
leading tacklers. He had
Yeah,
7 tackles at linebacker, which is a little surprising because that's another guy that you and I saw that first week that
yeah.
he may have looked more lost than Anthony Lucas did. But I think in the middle of spring, sort of the switch turned on for him.
Yeah, and speaking to some people around him, I mean, he kind of admitted that the first couple of practices, things move fast, and that's natural when you're getting adjusted into college. That's also the benefit of coming in during the spring, is you get 15 practices to get adjusted and get assimilated to workouts and all that, and he's a guy that really took advantage of it, and he's put himself in a good position heading into the fall. And even a guy like Denver Harris kind of showed what he could do on the outside. Obviously, another 5-star, and didn't get his head around on one play in the corner of the end zone, but I thought really showed that he has a chance to contribute as well.
Yeah, and then Bryce Anderson, he had
Yeah,
a couple pass breakups at safety. So I mean, there are a lot of silver linings to see from the game. I know most people left it thinking, oh, that's going to be bad.
yeah,
But once again, we told people that was going to happen, that they were going to, maybe be a little disappointed when they
yeah.
tuned in.
And
And that's what happened. I thought the quarterbacks may have been a little better. I don't think any of the three actually completed 50% of their passes, but
no.
the drops go into that as well. But offensive line and defensive line were missing so many people that it just wasn't going to look like the fall was going to look. So you got to take the Evan Stewarts, the Anthony Lucases, the Bryce Andersons, and even Mari Daniels, who's a bit of a veteran now. Those kind of things you got to take. That hey, there are some bright spots there.
Yeah, and I think to the other point, just looking at the comments coming out of the spring game, one of the questions was, well, why did A&M throw it so much if it was windy? And I think Jimbo Fisher kind of came in with an idea of what he wanted to get done. And when you listen to him in the post game press conference, thought he brought up a notable point that you don't really want to be running guys into the middle of the pile over and over and over again in a spring game, because that's how ankles get turned and things like that. And so it's only natural you're going to throw the ball around and try to work on areas. It's a practice at the end of the day. And so, they came in with things that they wanted to work on and maybe didn't get everything accomplished, but, they're going to get a full roster together this summer and kind of let this quarterback battle take shape. I don't think anybody really separated themselves, to be honest, and between Max Johnson, Haynes King, and Connor Wigman. Not that any was really expected to in a spring game, and so I think going forward, that's going to kind of be the focus heading into fall camp is which guy can kind of protect the ball the best, and go from there.
Yeah, you had mentioned, A&M sort of wanting to do things. I mean, it was just funny. You had Anaya Smith back there in a yellow jersey who can't be
Yeah,
touched, and yet they run a dive with him up the middle. I mean, that's not a play that I mean, unless your line just blows away the D line and linebackers, I mean, that's going to go for 0 every time since all they have to do is touch them. But then, at the end of the game, when it looked like Maroon had it won, they came out and they threw 4 different times instead of just kneeling the ball out. So, yeah, I mean, Fisher wanted to see what the team could do, and passing has been the issue for the last couple of years, just no downfield passing game. So, hey, why not just keep doing that? And it's not there yet. But, I mean, Evan Stewart, I forget who it was that was on him. I think it was a walk-on, but just his catch down the sideline that he was able to go up and get, that he went back and threw the defender to catch that. I mean, you see that, and that looks like a veteran move. So, that's gives you some hope going into the season for a little downfield action.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, and you even heard Fisher talk about in the post-game press conference that they need to push the ball down the field more. And it's something that we'll see what happens during the regular season when you're kind of game planning and scheming for different opponents. But it's something that's clearly a point of emphasis and has been all spring. And to your point about Evan Stewart, he's got tremendous body control and can really adjust to the ball and make difficult catches. It's not just that he's got great speed. It's just the way he controls his body and can make those tough catches along the sideline. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see once we get to the fall and go from there. It was also a big recruiting weekend, and we're gonna touch on that after the break. We're gonna take a quick break and come back and talk about the big visitor weekend that A&M had. All right, welcome back, Brian. Got to touch on some news that came across on Monday morning. Tyler White, just a name kind of everybody expected coming out of the weekend to pop.
No, for sure. A&M had a ton of 5-stars on campus this weekend, and naturally they got a 5-star commit. Now that's not a lie, because the both of the major kicking coaches, which is Jamie Cole and Chris Saylor, have him as a 5-star punter, one of the top 3 guys in the country. But, I know fans, weren't exactly excited. I think it's maybe one of the fewest viewed commitment threads we've had. But, they're going to need a punter after Nick Constantine, who graduates, and you want a guy to sort of get in the pipeline. And he's also a kid that, I mean, he was 10 for 12 on field goals this year, kicked a 55-yarder, has a strong leg on kickoff. So he's a guy that's pretty versatile. So I know fans are probably upset that it's going to hurt the average ranking, as they were mad at Machowski this past year for hurting that as well. But, I mean, it's a guy that can definitely help the team. And, I know we saw, going back a couple years, Braden Mann, how valuable he was to A&M. And I mean, I don't know if Tyler White's going to be Braden Mann, but it shows that a punter can have a big, effect on the game. And it was a guy that they obviously graded highly. So yeah, 5-star commitment. We'll give him 5 stars.
Absolutely. Just add to the 5-star weekend, right? I know last fall it was kind of 5-star Fridays. We can kind of start the 5-star Monday.
Yeah,
with Tyler White. So
with these, I mean, I've heard he's a transcendent punter.
He's a transcendent punter.
Yeah.
And just to your point, and it was invited to the All-American Bowl, and obviously, clearly, a guy that's one of the top punters in the nation. Just looking at some of the reviews on him, average of 45 yards per punt with a 4.8 hang time. Obviously, a guy that Jimbo Fisher and his staff kind of looked at and zeroed in on. He's been to campus a couple times already this spring. So it's probably not the name everybody expected coming out of the weekend, but now they add him to the fold and can kind of continue to build on this class. He's the 4th commitment, joining Anthony James, Johnny Bowens, and Colton Thomason as the other commits in the class. And there was a lot of other big targets in in this weekend. Jonte Cook, Malik Muhammad, Darian Gillette, even Anthony Hill made it back for the spring game as well, and then was also, I thought, pretty important getting Javian Taviano back on campus again. He's a guy that I think it should be noticed. I think you and I both agree. A&M is more in this than maybe people kind of maybe give them credit for, and him coming back twice in a short time span kind of speaks to that. He's had a lot of fun, and DJ Durkin's made a great impression on him, and I really do expect A&M to be in the thick of that race moving into the summer as well.
Yeah, sorry, I'm actually gonna interrupt this for half a second. I just got a message from a source that Caleb Chapman, A&M wide receiver, is in the transfer portal. When he's been healthy, he's been really good. He was a big key to the win over Florida, to not this past season, but the one ago. But he entered the transfer portal today, and with the young receivers coming in, I guess that's not a huge surprise. But he was injured all spring, so I know people are watching this live, so that's why I broke in.
Yeah,
On that, just that's news there. But okay, Javian Toviano. So he shows up on Thursday. It's a 5-star, comes to practice. He's hanging out with Chandavian Bradley, another 5-star. He came in from Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And then Javian goes back home. He goes to Baylor on Saturday morning, and Texas fans are expecting him in Austin. Instead, he shows back up at A&M, and he was hanging out with Jonte Cook all weekend. He was hanging out with Anthony Hill and
Ruben
Malik
Owen.
Muhammad and some of those 5-star guys. So it really, that was big because Toviano's a stud, and also those other cornerbacks, Malik Muhammad and Javon Thomas, who was at LSU but who likes A&M a lot. I mean, if they were able to get those three guys, and then Tony Mitchell, a 5-star from Alabama that was in town. So this year's DB crop could look like last year's D-line one. Jimbo could be like, hey, we want all the DBs, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was huge that Toviano made it back in.
Yeah, and Tony Mitchell too. A&M I think continues to kind of push the right buttons with him, and I know it's going to be tough to get a 5-star cornerback out of Alabama, but A&M has put themselves right in the mix there, and he's made no secret that he's really high on TJ Rushing, and has had a great time at A&M and been back and been on campus multiple times, and as a guy that's I think getting to know others in the class as well. And so, he's a guy I think, we'll have back on an official visit probably at some point as well. And I think A&M has put themselves squarely in the mix for him as well. And, talking with Darian Gillette, I think A&M continues to make a really good impression on him. Alabama's one that's kind of come into the mix as well, but he's been on campus several times. And this weekend, one of the things he talked about was just, this was a good opportunity for him to see the A&M defense and see how the linebackers are used. Same thing for Anthony Hill. Those were two guys that were really curious to see just what the defense looked like under DJ Durkin. Would it look the same? How would the linebackers get used? And to see a guy like Terrion Lee have an interception kind of helps in that regard. And so those were two guys that I think got a really good look at DJ Durkin's defense, and A&M did nothing to hurt themselves this weekend.
No, not at all. I mean, Anthony Hill's a guy that, if I had to pick today, I think he's going to A&M. And, with not really having the, 5-star linebacker types sign in the past couple of years, he's got to land him would be huge because, he's a Mike. He can play all over the place, but he's a Mike, and, they'll come downhill and can also cover. And that would be huge for A&M to get him. And he keeps making his way to campus. He knows a bunch of the current players, other recruits. I mean, I talked to Chandavian Bradley after his his unofficial visit. He was there Thursday coming in from Missouri, and he knows Anthony Hill, mentioned him several times as a guy that was looking at A&M that he had talked to. He mentioned Tony Mitchell. And so it sounds like, again, there's some talk nationally and in the state about guys, playing together and A&M putting together a class, which is what we saw this past year. even though you don't necessarily have the vocal leaders like the Bobby Taylor, those guys yet, you do have a lot of them talking about A&M and doing so behind the scenes.
You do, and you have guys like, I mean, even guys like Jonte Cook and Malik Muhammad are close, and those two guys have certainly have grown up together and taken a lot of visits together, and so you've got kind of them talking potentially about playing together, and and that's, I think Jonte Cook was another big one this weekend. When you look at Evan Stewart, for Evan Stewart to have a pretty big day was really important, because talking to Jonte Cook heading into the week, one of the things he said was if they can get Evan Stewart the ball, that'll help kind of build his trust that if he were to get on campus, they'd be able to get him the ball as well. So, for Evan Stewart to have a big day, I think helps with him. He's really high on Texas, and that's going to be a battle that I think kind of goes on into the summer between Texas and Texas A&M. But Evan Stewart having a big day can't hurt in that regard either.
Oh no, I mean Evan Stewart was a guy that was concerned about the offense, and they had to allay some of those concerns. Jonte Cook, the class after, is concerned about the offense, and they have to allay those concerns. And you're having Evan Stewart help, and then another 5-star, Micah Hudson, just made it to campus on Sunday because he couldn't on Saturday. So these receivers are interested, and yeah, the offense hasn't shown that downfield threat the past couple of years, but I think they're seeing what's coming in. So Evan Stewart should help a ton. And then, if Chris Marshall is able to live up to some potential early, that'll help too, is seeing both those, sort of receivers with different skill sets, but both being incredibly athletic. If they can go do these things early, I think it'll help land receivers, which is, obviously a position of need for A&M, even with the guys they just brought in.
Yeah, and I think this was also kind of an intriguing weekend along the offensive line. You obviously had Najee Harris in town as well on his official visit, and a couple new offers went out to Tyree Adams and Connor Stroh. I know you spoke to Tyree Adams, and I connected with Connor Stroh. This was a big one for Connor Stroh, and I think, like I mentioned on the board, if A&M were to push there, I think they'd make things really, really interesting. Texas has obviously built a good relationship. Arkansas has as well. But coming from a family of Aggies, if A&M were to push, I think they'd be in a really good spot. Just based on the history he has and interest he's shown even before getting an offer. And Tyree Adams is another guy that, even going back to the spring, I kind of saw him in February, and he was wearing an A&M jacket, and mentioned he was really interested in A&M and really high on the Aggies, and looking to make a visit this spring. And so seeing him get an offer, I think A&M is certainly one that can be a player there as well.
No, yeah, and then Caden Jones from New Orleans was
Yep.
back in town this weekend. His uncle Marcus Jasmine was a defensive lineman at A&M in the early 2000s. He started along the defensive line with my brother. But I think the offensive line, they got Colton Thomason committed. There are, some national guys like Samson Akunlala and, guys like that would be for sure takes. But A&M might have some decisions to make, and I could see them trying to get some of these guys in camp. Usually you don't see the 4-stars want to camp, but A&M has sort of made it, not just okay, but, a camp that kids want to go to and want to compete against the best, because they'll bring all the top O linemen and D linemen in the same day and get them to go against each other. So A&M could get a lot of these guys in a camp, and I think then, maybe say, hey, who do we want for sure? Who's the top targets here? Who's the top targets there? Because they need some pure tackles, and so that'll help them show. Because another kid that was offered, Naquil Bertrand from
Yep.
Philadelphia, Colorado commit, he was in town throughout most of the middle of the week. He had to leave before the game, but another big kid that was an offer, but that's a guy they could get for camp as well. So, and then from Melissa, Trevor Gooseby is another one they're looking at. No offer yet, but a camp eval. So the camps are going to be really interesting this summer when it comes to offensive line.
And that's a guy that you mentioned, camps. I talked to him, and we'll have a story come from him later this week. A&M talked with him about coming back for a camp, and it sounds like he's really interested in doing that, and is kind of a guy that Oklahoma's evaluating, Texas evaluating, and Texas A&M is evaluating as a tackle prospect. And so, the feedback he got this weekend was they really liked his film. Just kind of want to work with him during a camp and see how he goes through a practice, how he moves. And I think those one-on-one reps would be big for him. He's a guy that I got a chance to see last month and looked really impressive, actually, going against one of his teammates, Nigel Smith, who was also in town this weekend, and the two of them kind of split reps as well. And so, he's a guy that I think is kind of an intriguing tackle prospect to watch as this summer rolls along, that could emerge as a target kind of through the summer and fall as he goes through camp seasons. But probably a guy that's going to need to go to camp, and I think he understands that and is completely okay with that. And to your point, I think there might be some guys that are brought in on camps, and it's going to be really fascinating to kind of see how this offensive line class shapes out. Isaiah Robinson is another guy that a lot of the big in-state programs are looking at. That could
Adazio has reached out to him recently. He's another
Yep.
guy that they're planning to make an unofficial visit to A&M at some time, and it'll be interesting if he decides to camp as well.
Exactly. So there's just a lot of guys that to see this class. I think A&M for them is the key is to find a couple tackles in this class and really beef up and shore up that side of things. They've got a lot of interior guys, but finding guys that can play on the outside, I think is the biggest thing. But and we're about to hit the spring eval season. The coaches will be heading back out on the road, and there'll probably be some new offers going out as well.
Yeah. And then we talked about it last podcast. There hadn't really been anything big happen there, but quarterback is another thing that camp is going to be a big deal. And wouldn't surprise me to see Austin Novosad, the Baylor commit from Dripping Springs, if he comes in and camps. He camped last summer, had a great showing, but they had already sort of zeroed in on Eli Holstein. But he comes from an Aggie family and recently took an unofficial. And so I think he'll be back. And I think if I had to bet right now, put some money on it, he would be the odds-on favorite to be the quarterback in this class. So I think he'll probably come to camp and throw, and there's a chance he could end up as the guy. And he's a high 3-star, but I think he's one of those that has a chance to keep rising and rising. He had a great showing at Elite 11, got an invite to the finals there. So really good player, and they'll probably bring in some other QBs as well, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. He's kind of the guy that I think we've both kind of circled as the guy in this class, and A&M will probably keep trying for Eli Holstein and can't ever rule him out as well. But I'm with you. I think Austin Novosad is kind of the guy that ends up, I think, filling that spot at the quarterback position for A&M in this class.
Wait, though, I guess we did forget one guy. Yeah. Now, we were supposed to take it with was it a bucket of salt?
Bucket of salt, I think.
The fact that you were out of town last weekend. Last week you missed. Somebody said they heard from Arch Manning's girlfriend's mom's brother's uncle that Arch Manning was leaning towards A&M. So that'll be interesting once A&M lands the top player in the country. So. Forgot to mention him. A&M may make him throw. I don't know if they're convinced that he's the guy, but we'll see.
I mean, to your point in the buzz, like I was talking with somebody this morning and said, A&M got a commitment, and somebody said, "Oh, is it Arch Manning?" So to your point, that to bucket of salt, grain of salt, however.
Sorry, I'm not making fun of the person that posted that. I mean, when people hear things, go post it. But I would be a little surprised if Arch Manning ended up.
A&M is not really. Yeah, they haven't really, been mentioned as a school that's kind of in the mix there, and so
at all. Literally, that's the first mention is his girlfriend's mom saying that he's going to be an Aggie. So.
I did see that while I was out. I saw something pop up on Twitter about Arch Manning, and I thought, things.
We made message board geniuses, so that may have been a first. I don't know if we made it on board. Before.
Once you make it on board geniuses, right? You probably made it. And I think A&M's made a couple of appearances on there the last month or so. So
I know, but our board has usually been spared. It's usually another board that's known for some wild takes. So we got on there this time.
I would have thought they would have been on earlier. So there's clearly somebody who's got eyes on the A&M board that's on message
Yes.
board geniuses that's
Everybody's concerned about A&M. A&M's the villain. I don't know if you heard that too. You were gone last week. So A&M's
Oh
the
yeah.
villain now. So everybody's keeping an eye.
Yeah, everybody's keeping a close eye for anything that can end up on message board geniuses.
So on my tweet today about Tyler White committing, the first response. Oh no, it wasn't my tweet. It's the All American Bowl. So he's
Yeah.
selected to play in the All American Bowl, and they tweeted congrats. And somebody just responded with a whole bunch of dollar signs. And like once again, Tyler White's a great player, but I don't know who's writing the NIL checks for a punter. I don't know if that's happening. But it's the villain. People just accusing A&M of everything. So dollar signs after that.
We got to come up with he's got to get an NIL deal for something. Maybe there's something with punching or kicking that we got to get those guys some love.
Yes, for sure. He'll play baseball too. So man, he could be a star in both places.
Yeah, no, for sure. So with that, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks again.
Hold on, Tyler White. If you're listening to this,
yeah,
I'm sorry, we're not talking trash about you at all. I don't want you to think that like you are an elite punter. It's just fans going into a 5-star weekend, they thought when they heard maybe something was happening that it was going to be Javian Toviano or Malik Muhammad, players that get a little more attention.
Yeah.
But they're excited about you. I promise they are.
They will be roaring the first time you rip off a 60-yard punt in a game. I can promise you that. The moment you flip field position, you will spark a discussion for days on flipping field position and the importance of special teams. So that will for sure happen. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to give us a like on Spotify. We're on Spotify, iTunes Podcast, Stitcher, anywhere. We're on all those. So be sure to give us a like, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, can I use a phrase that I've always wanted to say? I see it on Saturday Night Live. I'm going to say, smash that subscribe button. I don't really know what that means, but I'm going to tell people to do it.
Yep. Smash that subscribe button and
there we go.
And share as well.